Hey everybody, Cone here, working on the Ram truck once again, and today, a little bit of a broken up video as I started the project yesterday and things took a little bit of a turn. Not anything super dramatic, but there's certainly been some developments that are hindering our journey north with the truck, mostly to do with the shifting. I actually started yesterday with a simple project of putting in a water temperature gauge, and in the process of that, I was like, while I'm sitting around, I better change this grease in the transmission. I'll go ahead and start with some of the transmission stuff to give you a clue as to where we're at right now. Now it's time for a messy job that nobody wants to do. Gear oil. So we have pretty easy to access drain and fill holes for the transmission, and we're going to do that now. We'll see what actually comes out of this thing. You can tell it hasn't been done in a while when stuff built up around the head of the bolt. But luckily they are not super tight. Turkey pans. If you're ever working in the garage, always have turkey pans. That's more than I thought. Way more than I thought, to be honest. And it's actually fluid. Label me surprised. That might have even been full. That's a lot of metal. Oh, maybe that's foam. Oh, it's... Yeah, there was some gross stuff at the bottom there. I don't think it was metal. I think it was just like, just chowder. No, that might be metal. Ooh. It's actually not that bad. This is a magnetic drain plug, and there's a little on there, but honestly the 240s has been worse. Okay, so it was a bit worse than I thought. I didn't realize the plug was hollow with magnets in it, so it was pretty much full. There's some foam in there. It makes me think that maybe there was a little bit of water infiltration in the trans, or that grease has just been in there for a very long time. Certainly in need of changing. I hate square-headed bolts. They're the worst. Ah, this has made me sad. It fell in the pan. Alright, so I got my fluid pump hooked up to a gallon of Stay Lube gear oil. And the procedure for filling transmission is basically till it comes out. So it's a lot thinner than I think it should be, and it's certainly, it's got a sheen to it. Understand where first is. Never mind. going on there. And then it went right in. Huh. Seems like it's the actual linkages, the actual forks are messed up. But at the end of the day, it does still work. However, the findings were not great. And it led to me doing some research to figure out what was going on, if it's a problem with me, if it's a problem with the truck, if it's a problem with the transmission, blah, 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 blah. And what I think I've determined is the actual shift forks have little pads on them that help engage the gears. It's a very simple, very rudimentary transmission. And those pads in these are made out of nylon. They are very prone to breaking and often not replaced when they should be. And the effects of that are noted to be troubles shifting, especially getting into third and fourth gear, which I am definitely having, and there's not any issues with it in gear. So the transmission, when it's in gear, it stays in gear. When you have a gear that's bad in a manual transmission, what usually happens is it wants to pop out under load. The gears are no longer meshing together properly, and the transmission wants to lurch out of gear. So it doesn't do that, but it does seem to have a very hard time shifting. Multiple times in my journey yesterday, I had to actually come to a complete stop and start over in order to get into any gear. So for me, I would like to try and do something. So a lot of research went into trying to figure out what the next step would be there. The new grease obviously didn't affect it at all, and I didn't know exactly where to turn. So this has led us here. These are the shift fork insert pads. So these ride on the shift forks and actually engage the gears. And from what I could tell, doing some research, when these go bad, it does give you the same symptoms that we are experiencing. So how do you get to these things? So this transmission is what is known as a top loader transmission. A lot of them kind of go by this name, but basically what it means is there is a plate on top of the transmission that you can access to get to all of the gears. Now, I didn't remember if there was any access panel, and the reason I didn't remember is somebody's put some vinyl, I don't know, not carpet, but covering over the tunnel. But the good news is we do have an access panel in order to get to the transmission. So in order to get down into those forks, we need to remove the shifter and this panel here, and that will expose the top of the transmission. All right, I went on eBay here and found an example of what this is going to look like. So this is that shift fork mechanism, and these two forks here are the only gear selectors with this setup. So like I said, it's very simple. You can just see right there on the edge of that one that there is a little pad, and that is what we need to replace, or hopefully we're also going to inspect these forks to see what they are like. We're not quite there yet. We got some work to do, and I gotta wait for those to come in, but that is the status of the transmission. So that's where we stand with that stuff. The other thing that I noticed on the drive was that the brakes are still a little bit weird. I have not touched the back brakes on the trucks yet. The trucks? No, the truck. There's only one truck. I haven't touched the backs because I needed a special tool to even get into there, but I have now gotten that special tool, hopefully. So that is what we're actually going to tackle today, is inspecting these rear brakes. So the problem is on light brakes, and I'd say even moderate brakes, it's fine. But when you start to really lean into it, the truck really wants to pull to the left very hard. Interestingly, the right rear wheel, the right rear corner, I had a hard time getting to bleed when I was bleeding all the brakes. You remember I did the master, front, wheel cylinders, new shoes in the front, new lines in the front. So the front's all taken care of, and the master's taken care of. But the back, like I said, we haven't touched. But seeing how the right rear didn't want to bleed, it didn't want to push fluid at all. Well, yet the lines were clear. I pulled the lines off and got fluid through perfectly fine. Something is up with that right rear. And just real quick here, an interesting find. So, ow, steering wheel there. Yesterday I put in the Bosch water temperature gauge, replaced the old one that was in there that didn't work, and that involved putting in a sensor in the top radiator hose. I'm not very happy with the fitting there, but it is what it is. It's working. The temperature gauge works, and the truck runs very nice and cool. It actually runs great temperature-wise. Happy about that. Unfortunately, the tack stopped working in that endeavor, which I was a little bummed about, because I like the having the tack, and it certainly makes shifting a little bit easier, especially when you got to try and double clutch it and find the gear again with the rev matching. Found some very fun wiring when I was taking that apart. Let me show you. So I found some pretty gnarly stuff with the wiring on this truck so far, but I think this one takes the cake. This is the tack signal wire. That is a wire wrapped around an eye connector, and that's it. That's how the tack was wired. So, not utterly surprised that it has stopped working. Luckily, with a rare bit of foresight, I had already purchased wheel cylinders for the rear. So for today, what I need to do is go ahead and try to take this right rear apart, make sure the wheel cylinders are right, inspect the shoes, see if we need new shoes, and get into there. This is going to be quite a doozy though, because this is a vehicle with dualies on the back, and I've not had these off yet, so I'm not too excited about the prospects of it, but it's got to be done. Faint of heart, look away. Well, we all knew this was coming. Pittsburgh, Harbor Freight. Shocking. Well, I'm sure my neighbors absolutely hate me now, but the good news is I'm moving, so they're hating somebody that doesn't live here anymore, right? Matco Impact, 100 PSI. Last plug nut off. Sorry, neighbors. I really do try not to be that guy running his air tools at 8 o'clock at night on a weeknight. I try to be a good neighbor. I promise. Oh, baby, that has not seen the light of day in a long time. Probably good a time as any to glove up. So, one thing that maybe some people that aren't familiar with dually vehicles don't realize is these are both the same wheel. So if you lose one, you can take it off and just run a single wheel in a pinch. Or it's the same as the front wheels. So you could take one from the back and put it on the front. So you basically kinda technically have two spares at all times. Oh boy. Okay. There is our rear drum full of mud daubers and all sorts of good stuff in there. We've already pissed off the neighbors. Let's just keep it up, huh? Yeah. Okay. So today a little bit of a lesson in why it's important sometimes to take a little bit of a break from your project. Last night I got so engrossed in trying to figure out how to get this axle out of there. I was getting really frustrated. I was already pretty frustrated and sore from just getting the wheels off. And I reached a point where I was like, I just need to stop. And I did, and I reached out to some friends and asked advice from like my dad and stuff like that. Of, what am I looking at here? What am I doing wrong? What am I not seeing? And I think we figured out what the holdup is here. So why this needs to come off. This contains the whole axle. So the whole axle shaft will come out. This retains the brake drum in this application. So in order to get the brake drum off, we need to get this cap off and pull the whole axle out, release the nut inside of there, release the bearings inside of there, then the drum can come off. So, you would think taking the nuts off, this should pull out. However, if you look, there's a little bit of a difference in the material around here. Now, I thought that what I was looking at here was just where the washers were and where I'd rubbed off the paint. Turns out, it's cones. It's me. That's the problem. There's little conical spacers in here that actually provide a little bit of extra retention for this cap, apparently. And I didn't even notice last night that there is a slot in them, so you can definitely tell they're there. I'm going to get you in here good and close so you can see what we're talking about. And there they are. You can see that there's little slots around these studs. I think these usually come out a lot easier, but because it's been painted, it's making it more difficult. Well, this is just part of it. I've tried everything. Other people have tried things. It's been air hammered. It's been hammered. It's been pried on. It's not coming out. Something has, I think, happened with this axle. There's got to be a reason this side was never serviced. There's got to be a reason this side doesn't have brakes. And the wheel cylinder leaks on the side. The hub leaks on the side, and then this axle is as good as welded in place, basically. I don't know what happened, I don't know who did what, I don't know if it was just time, but there's no getting it out. I can't do it, and I'm out of ideas, unless somebody out there has an idea as to how to get this out of there any other way. That's just kind of it for now. Alright, while we're waiting for ideas on what to do back there, let's move on to the next big thing, and that is fixing the shifter. So, underneath of this vinyl, we got a couple screws holding basically a boot for the shifter in place. What we actually need to do is remove the shifter, and then once we remove the shifter, we can remove, well, once we remove the shifter, we'll remove this plate here, which will unveil basically the entire top of the transmission and see what kind of access we have there. All those, the shift boot's seen better days. Okay, so there is the actual shifter. Now it looks like there is actually some slop, some play in the actual shift like ball here. This is a metal on metal, basically bushing right here, and those are known to get some play in them. But this is, considering the length of the arm here, not obnoxious. I've had cars that are worse. We do need to make sure we're in neutral though. Okay, so that is 100% neutral. And you can see it has a tendency to want to flop to the left gate, which is interesting. The right gate is pretty heavily sprung, the left gate is not. So that's probably some of the reason right there why it's hard to find third gear, because the gate's always flopping to the left. It's always wanting to side to first gear, when we don't want that at all. We want third, which is there. And there's fourth. There's second. So, when not in motion, even with the wrong hand, there's all three gears that we need. So, whether or not this is going to do anything, I'm not sure, but I figured it would be worthwhile just to inspect what's going on here and see if there is any easy fixes. Excuse me, we just got attacked by a snake. Okay, so I'm trying to push down and turn, so that's the release for this, is to push down and turn. What I really need is a pair of channel locks, which are in North Carolina right now, which is great. Okay, but I got it. It wasn't too bad. Yeah, you can see that, yeah, it's definitely, you gotta push down to get to there. Okay, so we're supposedly neutral. It should just come right out. And it does. Really, that smell, I hate it. Really not any noticeable damage here. Good bushings, good spring, full of grease. Nothing too worrying there. Now for the large plate. Unfortunately, I think we're gonna have to sacrifice a little bit more of this vinyl, but it's in desperate need of replacing anyway. Yes, yes, we hear your diesel. Very impressed by it. Alright, looks like there's some shmoo holding this in place. Probably some silicone or something to keep it from stinking. And we missed one. You like how I say we, as if you were involved? As if it's partially your fault? Actually kind of feels like butylene rubber, like the stuff you seal windshields with. Oh, that's crusty. Oh, we are in some good stuff now. Yeah, I'm gonna say it's been a while since this has happened. Oh, well, there you have, that's a Carolina pine right there. Oh, man. This is how rust happens. Not on transmissions, sure, but that's how most of rust on bodies happens. That's some serious grime. I want to get a lot of this off, because we're taking this panel off. We don't want this all to be falling down into the transmission, ideally. Might have to get the oil compressor out. Hey, I found the reverse light switch, though. That's cool. Alright, after some serious excavation, I found all the bolts, including this one up front that was so buried it took me forever to find it. But we got all the bolts, and we got the logo from a new process, because this is an MP435, confirming it is not a T18, which I pretty much already knew because of the shift pattern, but interesting to find nonetheless. That is surprisingly loose.
I mean, they're tight, but they're...
I just expected, like, haven't been undone since 1967.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you ready?
Oh, I'm ready. You bastard. Well, the good news is there's gears in there still. Doesn't mean the synchros are in any semblance of one piece. But...
No. And it doesn't have any RTV on it.
No. Yeah, gear's seen some better days.
All the way around.
So that's actually first. That's actually the 6-to-1. That's like the non-synchronized.
Uh-huh.
So we don't really care about that. That's probably from people trying to get it into first from second. And
namely you?
Namely me.
Okay.
No, I mean, I'm sure people have...
Yeah, I know. I'm just being an ass.
3 and 4 are what don't want to go, and that should be these front two.
Okay.
And that should be that front fork, I do believe.
Ow.
How do the forks look? I guess we need to look at that now. This is actually really depressing. Yeah, it looks fine.
I mean, if you got them, I'd go ahead and replace them.
Yeah, but it's not going to change anything. I feel like I'm throwing gold in a dumpster right now.
Wish you would have got that on camera.
After so many people said, oh yeah, those things are going to be trashed. That's something.
You're just coming up with anything to make you feel better.
It was totally worth it.
Off a couple millimeters or whatnot. Less
Now
than
you're
millimeters.
grasping for straws. Maybe I just really suck at shifting, but I thought that was your job.
That is my job. I haven't had to shift in years. Yeah. So technically, it should just slide back in, right?
I feel like the front's gotta go down under first.
Gotta slide onto that, right? That thing right there. Hey, camera boy. Mm-hmm. You hold this, and I'll hold the camera.
Why? You took it out. You know how it comes out.
I don't know how it comes out.
Give one more try. You got 3 kids. I know you know how to do this. feel like that's probably not where it goes. I feel like it probably goes further back.
Yeah, but it's hitting on this side. How the hell did I do this?
Micah glove. Oh, did you hear the nice thunk it made too?
Mm-hmm.
That's encouraging. I like this. I take apart, you put back together. I appreciate whoever made the decision to give that big access panel though.
Yeah.
Right on there. Let's hope it's still in neutral. Yes. Presses in. There you go. Pretty simple. Just getting the practice of taking this out, you know?
And dropping bolts.
You never know when you need to do this on the side of the road.
Don't jinx it.
I mean, I don't know what you're going to do if you do this on the side of the road. Well, that looks pretty bad.
Seen some pretty legit roadkill things done on the side of the road.
I don't have roadkill budget.
Yeah, I know, right?
Really? Yeah, something feels like it just keeps pushing it this way.
So push the clutch in while we do it? No?
But then this is gonna be able to move the gears.
I was just thinking maybe it would let because what I think has happened, I think first gear is too far back.
Oh.
And reverse is a little bit too far back. So if it slides forward just a little bit.
What is it? It's dragging on the right side, the left side of the case. I don't know. I just don't know. It's impossible to know what happened in the front, right? So let's pick up a little bit where we left off. So with the transmission, we did manage to get the forks back in there and aligned. I didn't get a ton of footage of that stuff, mostly because I let my friend Kyle hold the camera, and I don't think he quite understood what record versus not record meant. It all got back together. There's enough that you see there to know what happened. You just don't maybe realize how long that took. There was a lot of on and off of that top cover to get the forks and everything lined back up. We then went out and went for a drive with it, and I want to say fourth gear specifically did feel better. That might be because I actually saw that my fluid level was a little bit low, and I only saw that because of where the fill plug was. I could see it was like maybe close to an inch low, so it was actually low on grease. So I put my liquid gold in there all the way up to the fill line, and fourth gear definitely felt better. Third gear is still really bad, and I drove it without the trans cover on there, and I could hear that third gear physically has something wrong with it. I believe the bearings that hold the gear in place are bad, and the gear is actually wobbling, moving forward and back, and not aligning correctly for that reason. It does not sound great, even cruising in third gear, so I'm going to say, I don't think it's in danger of like shattering into pieces, but I'm going to say we'll probably use third at a minimum for the trip, and then seriously start to look into how are we going to put a different transmission in there. The cheaper way to go would be to convert the truck to an automatic. I personally don't want to do that. This is not a truck of utility. This is a truck and a project of a passion of mine, and I want it a certain way. I want it to be a manual. I want it to still have an original V8 in it and that kind of stuff. So it's going to probably be harder. It's going to be more expensive to do it that way, but that's just the way that I want to keep it personally. But that's a future thing. For now, the number one thing that I want to try to address is still the brakes, getting the brakes to feel even. I'm still very concerned that this right rear, I'm not even not even so much concerned. I know the right rear isn't doing anything brake-wise. And that seems to be causing, whenever I have to use the brakes strongly, the truck wants to pull to the left, and that makes sense. I got, stronger brakes on the left side than I do the right side, and it's going to want to pivot that way. So I really do want to try to get in here. I've got a couple new ideas. I tried previously to double nut one of these studs. Bear with me. What that means is placing two nuts on the stud, tightening them to each other, and then backing off the back one, which will, in theory, jam the nuts together and help pull the stud out. So that's a threaded stud all the way in. It's not pressed in, it's threaded in. And the idea is if we can get the stud to rotate, it's going to break free these cones. And I definitely have now seen people do it that way. Unfortunately, the bolts, the nuts, that's the word I'm looking for. The nuts I purchased from the local Home Depot, this is a hardened steel stud here. This is some hard metal. The little zinc-coated nuts that I bought at Home Depot, as soon as I tried to start backing it out, it pulled the threads out of that nut so fast and didn't even touch the threads of the stud. So today I went down to the better hardware store, Old Ace, and purchased a couple of different options. So I have a couple high-grade cap nuts. These are like half nuts basically, so it gives you more room to get into there. And I might be able to use these, or jam nuts as they're known, to jam a different nut next to it, because I also found a couple hardened grade 8, really, stout nuts to put on there. I'm a bit worried that these are going to be too girthy to get two of them on there, because you got to be able to get two for it to do anything. So, all right, so I got you right up in here. So let's just see. All we want to do is snug these together. They don't need to be super tight to each other, because they're going to bind each other up as it goes. And what I've done is I've actually scored the front of the stud so I can see if it's moved at all. Okay, it is just now gotten them bound together. Okay, so far they have definitely tightened to each other, but no movement yet. What I might need to do is actually pull the wheel off in order to get proper access. Basically NASCAR. Okay, you see how the nuts have gotten a little offset from each other? That means they're really starting to clamp into each other, which is good. So far, no movement though on the stud. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the two nuts next to it just to get me some clearance. The fact that someone's spinning and it ain't the stud isn't a good sign. Yeah, it was starting to pull the threads on the front. So basically what was going on there is the front bolt was getting pushed out, but it was just pulling the threads off of the stud. Luckily they're still threads, and the second nut going through it straightened them back out pretty good. But I think we're going to have to move on to more drastic measures. Are you kidding me? Oh my god. That was totally an accident. Oh, that's wild. Well, it ruined the stud, but by golly, it's out. There's not any sealant or anything on there. That's just time. I think I'm gonna need a lot more nuts. Oh crap! A full hour and a half later, we've got number 2 going. Seems to be the way to go is to get the jam nut just completely stripped into the bottom nut. I'm gonna quickly run out of nuts though. I'll be darned, it actually did it. I had so little faith in this actually working that I didn't even introduce it. Like I didn't even posit to you what it is I'm doing here. But this seems to have actually worked. And for the first time it worked without taking the collar with it, which is bizarre. Oh, the collar came with, and the collar came out. It's gonna be hot because I just got it heated. There we go, everybody. There's a collar. Who knew? Who knew? I really didn't expect any of these to come out like that, and I really didn't expect this little thing to work. This is a stud extractor. 15 bucks. Let's hope it keeps working. So basically, here, let me release this thing now. It's going to be a challenge. Let's see. So release would be this way. I wish I had a wrench for it. It'd make it even more useful if I had a wrench for it. So basically, this thing has teeth in it, jaws in it, and as you spin, they close in, kind of like a Jacob's chuck on a drill. Very similar to that. The thing is, the way that it works, as you are tightening it, you're also loosening the stud. So it works as you're trying to tighten it down, it's actively trying to loosen the stud. I'm elated about that. I wish I would have tried this sooner. And just that easy. Step 1 is done. The axle did pop loose as soon as the last of these bastards came out. Alright, I'm still pretty bewildered that that actually worked. The axle is loose. It is quite warm. And it does come out. And that exposes the nut in there. We got splines. Let's get this out of here. We got stinky grease. Okay. So in here, we should have a nut and then like a lock washer thing, kind of like just like a wheel bearing retainer. And this is supposed to be for this. I don't think that's for that. I'm not utterly surprised because I don't think this axle is what it is internet supposed to be. Let me clean this off a little. We've actually got marks in here that somebody's definitely been here before, because it's got marks of somebody doing what I'm about to do, which is take a screwdriver And give it a little tap tap. Yeah, none of the stuff should be super tight. If you have your bolts your nuts too tight on this stuff, it just eats up the bearings. Okay, so let's put these in order. So this is outside, and we'll go inside as we go. This just pops out. That goes there. Oh, we have another nut. Dang it! I was hopeful. Okay, give me some slack. Okay, it looks like the same situation, and I see marks on this one that someone's done the same thing. Oh, okay. That one also not very tight. I keep that in mind for when we're reassembling. So what I'm hoping to see in here is just a sign, just something to tell me why. Why does this corner not have brakes? Whether the shoes are gone, whether the wheel cylinder is bad, whatever. Whether there's a broken spring even, who knows? I just want to know why. Okay, that's a little iffy to come off. There it goes. There it goes. Right. And now, this is the next layer deep. And it looks like the next thing is our bearing, roller bearing. It's loose. Oh. Come to me. Come on. Gilliby. I just want to drop it on the ground. Well, it's out. It's in very good shape. That is a fine bearing indeed. There's our grease dripping out of there. Put that down there. And now, okay, that's heavy. Ooh. Ooh. That is disgusting. Oh no. I don't know that we have a brake issue. I think we have a wheel seal issue. Yeah. I think we have significant grease infiltration. Oh, jeez. Those are just slick as could be. Yeah, it's got shoes there. It's got decent looking hardware. What it doesn't have is any friction because everything's coated in grease. That's a mess. That is a straight up mess. This isn't hugely surprising to me. It's surprising how bad it is, but this wheel was covered in grease. Or, well, it was covered in something. I didn't know if it was grease or if it was brake fluid. It's obviously now grease. The other side is dry as a bone. So that side probably works because it's not covered in grease. This side is obviously not working because there's no friction in grease. Let me show you inside of here. Here's your problem. And there's your shot of the disaster inside. And yeah, the shoes are just absolutely covered and caked in grease. Alright, well hopefully you can see this. This is the inner wheel seal on the drum, and I've actually found that it has a big chunk missing out of it, and it's just, I mean, it's super brittle, so obviously that is where our major leak is. I felt all the bearings, they all feel fine. I think for the time being we're going to try and put a new wheel cylinder, no, a new wheel seal and a new wheel cylinder and new shoes on the actual brakes and see where that gets us. That's been in there a minute. or two. Well, that was exciting. All right, and then the inner bearing is still in there, and still, oh yeah, all these bearings are really, really fantastic. These are high quality, like old school bearings. So yeah, we just need ourselves a new inner seal, which is this, and we are golden, hopefully. All right, well, this is where I'm gonna have to leave you off today, as I'm finally at the point of needing to order some parts to continue. So I gotta order the inner seal there, gotta get some shoes. I think I'm going to bypass getting the drum for now because I looked at them and there was between 3 weeks and months of back order on those, or at least special order on those. So I don't think that's gonna happen in our time scale. But if, and there's some big ifs here, if the parts come in an appropriate time, I think we should be about ready to do our journey next weekend, hopefully. So the transmission, it is what it is at this point. I'm gonna just have to deal with it and hopefully, you know, trial by fire a little bit, learn on the road as to what it wants out of a shift and how it behaves and whatnot, and that'll be a future problem. The brakes, I feel pretty confident about the wheel cylinder issue being a key part of why that corner of the brakes are not working very well. I'm still definitely going to do the wheel cylinder, and I'm going to do, you know, the brakes back there while I'm at it. But I feel pretty good about the fact that that much grease was just causing it to have basically no brakes at that corner. And then from there, if things don't go horribly wrong, then we should be about ready to go. The only other things I'd like to do is I definitely want to get the tach working again. That one, I tried to rewire it, fixed the crappy wiring that was on it. No dice. It might just be dead, so put a new tach on there just because it would be nice to have on the road. And then from there, I think we're set, ready to try and make the journey. I'll definitely record some of the preparations of getting it ready to go, and then I'm hoping to have some help recording the journey as well. Oh, and also thanks to Kyle for stepping in and helping out this week. He might be an integral part of our journey to North Carolina, so hopefully we kept him on our good side. I've given up on trying to stay on his wife's good side, so if I can stay on his good side, we'll be fine. Finn! Oh, I gotta put my fancy vinyl back. Ooh, it's a little worse for wear. Job complete.